Brian Colon, thank you so much for joining us. We have Senator Brenda McKenna, who is working so hard at the state legislature. Thank you for joining us. And Brenda, there will be a time, portion of our little Zoom here where we can talk. I'll welcome people to talk about legislation. So if you could share some things with us, that we'd really appreciate it. What's going on at the Roundhouse, if you like? We have District Attorney Barbara Romo joining us. Thank you. And we have Commissioner Bruck on with us also. Thank you for joining us. So, as you all know, we have ward meetings and our CCC meeting coming up soon. We need to elect officers, county chair, vice chair, ward chairs. Please consider running for chair of your ward or chair of your precinct or even chair of the whole county. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and we need to keep moving Sandoval forward. Later on in our Zoom here, Alex Pyland, who's also one of our candidates for ward chair, has a slideshow that she will be county chair. County chair. Thank you. She will be doing a presentation of a slideshow that she put together. We've been working on these ward meetings. Our ward meetings will happen all day on March 13th. And then our CCC meeting will be held on March 20th. Of course, all of this is going to be via Zoom. So she will give you the details on how to register to vote, how to fill out the application as a candidate, and all of that. She has a really nice presentation coming up. For our first Friday on March 5th, we will have a CD1 candidate forum. And for our second Saturday in March, we will not have second Saturday because that will be the day where our ward meetings will happen all day. So yeah, Alex will let you know a whole lot more later on. So I have the great honor and the pleasure of introducing our New Mexico Democratic Chair, Madam Marg Elliston. She has gracefully joined us today, and she's just going to open us up, let us know what is going on in our state in the Democratic Party. Marg. Where are we?
Okay.
Marg?
No, sorry.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Sorry, not quick enough with that. So, I was going to start out saying I'm so happy to be with my homies in Sandoval County, and I look forward to the day we can all be together. We just had our fabulous Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham promoted us to yellow this week. So thank you, Commissioner Bruck. I'm sure it's all you're doing, and all of us working hard, wearing our masks, being socially distant, not seeing each other in person, but being enthusiastic Democrats. So thank you all for making that happen. We can now gather in groups of 10, so watch out. But in order to be safe, we want to have all our Democratic meetings for the upcoming county, at the county level, at the ward level, county level, and state level virtually, so we keep with COVID safety measures. So please help. But I just wanted to review a little of what we've been through, because we Democrats have made the best of a difficult time, and we've shown that we're able to rise to any challenge. We sure made it clear last year in 2020. In March, remember that fantastic pre-primary meeting we had at Buffalo Thunder, which was the last time we saw each other in person. And then we faced our first and most daunting challenge. We had the global pandemic upended how we campaign. So instead of moping, we got to work. Our state and county parties moved our operations 100% online. then hosting these virtual events. We encourage participation, and we have so much enthusiasm. Over the summer, we launched our New Mexico for All campaign. We brought on senior staff, we brought on organizers, fellows, and a Native outreach program. We made over 1.4 million calls. We sent over 2.7 million texts, and we ran an unprecedented digital advertising program that received over 9.8 million eyes on it, and we reached people all over New Mexico. And really, that work paid off. Democrats turned out in record numbers in 2020. Voting by mail, we learned to do that. Voting early, voting in person. We shattered our previous turnout record. We had 930,000 New Mexicans casting ballots, and 13.5% more Democrats voted than Republicans. So because of all your enthusiasm and that enthusiasm, our nature is headed, we're headed to a brighter future. We delivered all 5 of our electoral votes to Joe Biden. He was sworn in, and he's now the 46th president of the United States. Just yesterday, our governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, was right there in the Oval Office wearing her ZIA flag mask and talking to the president about aid to states and their new infrastructure plan. So New Mexico has a seat at the table, and it's really exciting. Thanks to our governor and all our Congress people. We've got our new Senator, Ben Ray Lujan, joining Martin Heinrich, who's now our senior senator. And then we have our wonderful Congress people, Deb Haaland and Teresa Leger Fernandez, who are working hard every day. And all of us are so proud of Representative Haaland. She's nominated to be the first Native American Secretary of the Interior. She's gonna bring her compassion and her toughness to that job, and it's greatly needed, and it's going to be wonderful to see her in that position. We're all waiting anxiously to see when her confirmation happens, because we know that when it does, that triggers a whole sequence of events. Selected a new outstanding person to take her place. So a bunch of you are on the call today to talk about that, and we will be talking about that going forward. But right here in New Mexico, we have kept our majorities in the roundhouse, and all our state legislators are working hard right now to create that New Mexico for all. I'm really eager to hear from Senator McKenna about what she's learning and all the bills that are passing in the Senate, including the bill to remove the abortion ban. Hooray. So we're already seeing a lot of progress in the legislature, and you know, we say that when Democrats vote, change happens. So we rose to our challenge in 2020, and we're continuing to make change happen at the state level and at the national level. So it's really fantastic, and I'm so glad to be with all of you here. We have been at the Democratic Party of New Mexico. We've been working hard to build an infrastructure and continue investing in our party to make sure that we can thrive at every level of government. We know we have a big challenge in CD2, which we now have a Republican congressperson in that district, and that's pretty sad for me, but we're working hard every day to chip away at that. And our communications team is working hard every day to highlight the missteps that Yvette Harrell practices regularly. So we have the Democratic Party has a great organization right now, and we're in good shape financially. We're in good shape with our staff, and we're eager to push on into the future, get ready. And already we're getting ready for 2022, but I'm not going to talk about that now. We have lots of local elections to look forward to. And as I said, our Congressional District 1 election, which is going to be very exciting, and then electing new faces to the Democratic Party of New Mexico. As you know, I am stepping down as chair. I want to give some new people a chance to bring out their energy and enthusiasm and good thinking to lead our party. And I'm happy to be a senior advisor if they want me, but I want to make sure that the great staff that we have on board, continues their work, and that they have all the tools they need to do that. So that's where you come in too, because we need to make sure that we have creative leaders that take over the positions of responsibility in the party, as well as helping to fundraise to keep everybody on the job. So that's a big part of what I do. And I'm looking forward to supporting my successor in doing that as well. So with that, I just want to thank all of you for your hard work. And I want you to know that I'm coming back to Sandoval County. I can't give this up, and I want to help take back Rio Rancho, you guys, really. And I know we have work to do here in my community as well, so in Corrales. So we'll be doing that. Plus, I got to figure out this new split precincts. I'm in a whole new precinct. Nobody knows where it is or who's going to be in charge, but I'm down at the grassroots trying to figure those things out with you. So I'm looking forward to that. With that, I wanted to take a breath and thank all of you for all the work you're about to do, and to welcome Jessica Velasquez, who's going to talk. She's been all over the state already Zooming this morning. We've had precinct meetings in Bernalillo County and in Santa Fe County, so I'm hoping she can tell us about what's going on there, and also tell us about all her hopes and dreams for the Democratic Party of New Mexico. So welcome, Jessica Velasquez from the East Mountains.
So much, Madam Chair, for that wonderful introduction. And friends, I gotta say, Marg Elliston leaves some really big shoes to fill and has left such a legacy of winning elections and building our party. And Madam Chair, I'm here to say that I will do my absolute best to live up to the high expectations you have left in your wake. So friends in Sandoval, thank you so much for the invite today. I was just so looking forward to spending some time with Sandoval County Democrats. You know, showing up matters. And thank you all for showing up here today. And that is absolutely what's at the heart of everything we do as Democrats. When we show up for each other, when we show up for our communities, when we show up for our candidates and for our party, that's when real change and progress happens. I saw it as a classroom teacher. I see it in my third generation family business. I live it as a lifelong Democrat, and most recently as a candidate in a very tough rural district, Placitas notwithstanding, because Placitas is part of my district. So those of you in Placitas, we've gotten to know each other over the years here. The other side of District 22 on the East Mountains tends to be a little different, and showing up matters even more in areas like that. I got to tell you a short story, Leah. I know I'm not going to go over time. I promised Leah I would keep it real short today. I get so passionate about these issues though. So here we are back in 2018 when we could still be out in real life canvassing, and I own a 4-wheel drive vehicle because I live in the mountains. And Vote Builder tells me there's a voter who lives clear at the very top of this extremely rugged road. So I put my 4Runner in 4 low and go careening up this rocky road, only to realize that I'm going to have to park and hike to the house. There is no way I'm even going to get my vehicle up to that person's house. So I trudge up the mountain. By the time I get to the front porch, I'm out of breath and I'm sweaty. And, you know, luckily I'm just wearing my campaign t-shirt, so I don't have to worry too much about that kind of appearance. But I like, all right, I'm here. I knock on the door, wham, wham, wham. This elderly gentleman comes to the door. I'm glad he didn't have a gun. He's not accustomed to visitors. He said, "Good Lord, woman, what brings you out here today?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm running for office. And I think it's really important that we show up in our community and get to know the people that we're trying to represent." He just shakes his head. He said, "Here, let me pour you a glass of lemonade." We sat on the porch and talked for about 20 minutes or so. I figured I drove up there. I might as well spend the time. At the end of the conversation, he turns to me and he said, "You know, in the 40 years I've been here in the mountains, I don't think I've ever talked to a politician in real life. And honey, I hate to break your heart, but I'm a Republican." And I just about fell off the porch laughing. And he said, "You know, but you earned my vote because you took the time to show up here today." And friends, that is exactly the kind of energy we need within our party. I am running to be your next chair of the Democratic Party of New Mexico, because now more than ever, it is absolutely critical that we keep showing up so we can continue building our party, winning elections, and fighting for our core democratic values and policies at every level. As your next state chair, I will show up and I will work tirelessly so that we can build one of the most inclusive, effective, and powerful state party organizations in the country. So how do we do that? That's a really big vision and goal. It comes down to building the party, winning elections. And that means building democratic engagement and involvement across our state. Yes, in our rural areas, but also in our cities and with our urban Democrats as well. That means collaborating deeply with our SCC and especially our county parties so that we make sure everybody has the resources they need to show up and do the organizing work in their own communities, so that we can engage with our people in meaningful ways and bring people back into the Democratic Party if they have wandered off somewhere and gotten lost in Trumplandia. Right? Now's the time to bring them back home, my friends. So I think we also have to lead and drive new voter registration and, of course, voter turnout. And friends, I'm here to tell you, we need to bring the fight straight to the GOP by recruiting, training, and retaining not just candidates, but folks to do this political work behind the scenes as well, so that someday, maybe in 2 years, maybe longer, this might be a long haul, but we can stand up proudly and say, no uncontested GOP race at any level for any office in any community in New Mexico. So this speech is just a little taste of what I'd like to see going forward, but I'm actually really interested in hearing from you. So I want to get off my soapbox here. I sure hope I can earn your support if you are an SCC member. I hope to earn your vote in the election on April 24th to be the next chair of the Democratic Party. Charlotte, I'm going to ask you to throw our information in the chat. So please visit the website. Again, this is a really brief, just kind of overview. We've got to talk about engaging in tribal and Hispanic communities with our young people, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to give y'all a chance to ask some questions too. So again, my name is Jessica Velasquez. My information, thanks to Charlotte Roy Ball, the amazing Charlotte, is in the chat. And so Leah, thank you so much, my friends. And thank you for being here today. So I'll stand for some questions now.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much. So we have a question from Charles. So if you want to.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Jessica. Actually, it's not really a question. I'm going to make a statement of support. Just, no, really. I mean, you might know, may have seen you around before then, but when we served together on the governor's transition team for the PED, the education department, I was just so impressed with your solid work on that. You did so much more work than most people did, went over and above and beyond. And your energy you're showing here today is consistent with that. And I'm just excited about you becoming the next chair. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate that. We got to know each other when we were working on that transition team and also through labor. So that's part of the conversation that I really think is important for Democrats to have as our allied organizations, and making sure that we are leaning into those relationships as much as possible. So I'm really proud to have earned the support of our labor organizations. I'm a proud union member myself. NEA, Charles, all the way. So I hope if we have union brothers and sisters on this call today, thank you so much. You know exactly where I'm coming from.
All right, so there's a question in the chat, Jessica, from Dennis. Jessica, please outline your plan to win back dissatisfied Democrats, especially in rural areas.
Happens once a call that I don't click that button quick enough. Dennis, that's a beautiful question. And I had a really interesting call the other day with someone, you know, who's vice chair in a very rural part of our beautiful state, and said, you know, we've got to be able to speak rural. And I think that simple statement really includes a lot of potential for engagement. Part of it is meeting people where they are, right? And we know that our Democratic champions in the House, in the New Mexico Senate, at the federal level, are working really hard to make life better for all New Mexicans. What I would really like to see when we're able to be out again in the world, right? And I really hope and pray that that's coming soon, thanks to the good work of our Department of Health and our governor here. I believe that that will happen, hopefully starting this summer. Here's what I'm hearing from our rural counties, because it has to be a county by county strategy. I know full well, for example, from just House District 22, that what works in Placitas isn't necessarily going to work in Edgewood, New Mexico, right? So engaging with Democrats in disaffected areas means meeting them where they are, coming in and asking, what's going well? What do you need? What can the Democratic Party do for you? And being very strong in saying, here's what the Democratic Party has done for you. Look at this relief bill. Look at the legislation that our bold Democratic leaders are championing on our behalf. And being in front of that messaging is going to help a lot, because we've got to get back to kind of what my husband always called bread and butter politics, right? Like, what if politics is meant to serve the people, then as Democrats, we need to be very vocal about how we're accomplishing that goal, whether it's in particular issue and policy area, or more broadly, kind of shifting the culture around politics. And I think that a lot of that goes far in our rural communities. When we really talk about economic development and revitalization, if we're talking about environmental issues, if we're talking about education, there are bridge issues that allow us to engage with our rural communities in meaningful ways. I lived it as a candidate. And frankly, I think we're going to need to have a 33 county strategy to implement this, so that the county parties have the tools they need to work in their own backyards, whether that's hosting potlucks and picnics, or going door to door, or making thousands of phone calls. I mean, we know that that works. This is not, how do I put this? It's simple, but it's not easy, right? So we have to be able to do the work in our rural communities and make sure that we're speaking rural, like that wonderful phone caller explained to me. So that was a long answer. What else have you got for me, my friends?
Any other questions from anyone?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
We know that, hi, Jessica, Alex
Hi,
Pilot.
Alex.
Hi. We know that Rio Rancho has been a red stronghold in our county for far too long. And we know that there's some municipal elections coming up that we could possibly really make some changes, some positive changes in our community, in our whole county because of it. What plans do you have to help us via DPNM, not you personally, but through the party? How can DPNM help us achieve the goal of electing more Democrats in Rio Rancho and all throughout Sandoval County?
Perfect. So Alex, you know my backstory. It takes time sometimes to move the needle and to change red areas to blue. So here's part of what my master plan is to address some of these concerns. If we say we want to field Democrats at every level and every race across the state, what does that actually look like from DPNM's side? Obviously, it doesn't mean writing a blank check, to every single candidate, whether it's in a school board race in Mora or a county commission race in Rio Rancho. However, we do have information, and we can share information, hopefully through our website. And I know, I am not a tech genius, but I also know that I would love to see a portal for candidates to be able to log into the backside of our website that you're a verified Democratic candidate. The Republicans have done this to great effect. I watched it in my own race, Alex, that my opposition, I mean, I'm not making this up, had stump speeches that he could download directly into his phone. Right. And then talk about staying on message for the Republicans. We found out that same company was sending basically campaigns in a can all over the nation for legislative races. One can only assume that's also happening at the county level. So DPNM, I think I would love to see partly, like, here is an example stump speech. Right. Emerge is great for training women candidates in our state. I went through that program myself, and I know we've got a lot of Emergistas on this call. I would love to see DPNM work in tandem with Emerge to create this kind of information sharing and this kind of networking between folks who maybe even ran for office in that district before, so that we can become a clearinghouse for candidate support. I would also be really interested in building a stable of folks who do work in the political arenas, just to be on call sometimes, to take a quick phone call. So we've got, we don't have a very deep bench in New Mexico. And those of you, I know lots of you on this call have run for office. The fact that we've got to share field directors, for example, for a race, and they're running 6 or 7 races, is a challenge for candidates. So I think a lot of this can be solved very low budget, back end, a portal for the website even, that candidates have access to this information. And someone who has run, I mean, and we all know people who have run for office and they're running a tough race and they're like, that's it, I gave it all I got, I don't want to run again. All of that information tends to go into a black hole, right? Without some sort of, hey, okay, you ran. And I was very lucky because the gentleman who ran for office in my district beforehand, John Wallace, and some of you will remember him in Placitas, shared with me all of his files. He said, here's 30 volunteers, here's my donor list of 100, right? So I didn't have to build it completely from scratch. We ought to be able to do that as a party, so that our candidates, if we are serious about fielding candidates in every level, we got to make sure we're supporting them and knowing full well that it's going to take time. So I would hope that we can work with counties in difficult territories to build out maybe even a 10-year plan. I mean, good Lord, that's what they had to do in Georgia. They built a 10-year strategic plan to turn these districts Democratic. And it's not going to happen overnight. But if we can support local candidates, we know that the ripple effect up ballot is huge. It gives people something to rally behind right here in their community that isn't just a presidential race, right?
Just as an aside to that, is you might find it useful. We conducted a postmortem of county candidates, and we have collected some data and resources for future candidates. So we're happy to share that with the state.
Yep, and not every county does that, right? And we have counties that have best practices in place. Well, let's share all of that together, right? And Sandoval is doing something great in getting that started. Well, let's get that going all over the place. Leah, I see we've got another question coming in the chat. How are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're doing good. Hey, Mitch, you wanna ask your question? It's pretty long, and then Karen. It looks like Karen has a question also.
Yeah, Jessica, it's Mitch. I had a great conversation with Jessica yesterday, and I was just asking, in terms of Dennis's question, in terms of specifics, I was understanding that I think the way we talked about yesterday about trying to hit those rural areas where we've lost a lot of working class voters to the Republican Party, that it would be about increasing voter registration, because there's still a lot of people who could be on our side that haven't even registered. Recruiting, having money to recruit candidates, train candidates, and giving them the monetary support they need from the party. And then looking to see how you bridge those kind of disaffected voters that might be more culturally conservative, but tend to be economically populist, and to lead with what you call those bread and butter issues that you and your husband talked about. And I was wondering whether you could say for the folks here that that's how you see it, or was I maybe misunderstanding in part of our conversation?
No, you've got it. And a lot, top of everyone's minds right now, as I'm making hundreds of calls all over the state, is of course protecting CD1 and making sure we elect a Democrat in CD1. But the first thing out of people's mouths is CD2. How do we take back CD2? And after talking with folks in CD2 and talking to Representative Xochitl Torres Small herself directly, one of the things she shared with me was the need to register more Democrats. And that doesn't mean necessarily setting up your card table outside of the local Walmart, right? There are allied organizations who really specialize in finding folks who would lean Democratic, whether that means sending people to the door, to their homes to get them registered, or doing it virtually. They did that to great effect in a few counties in Texas that had been blue, or sorry, had been red, that they were able to flip to blue. We saw it in Arizona. We see it with organizers who are doing this work at the grassroots level all over the country. So when I hear that from Representative Torres Small, that voter registration is tantamount to victory, that's where we should invest. And now I'm a big believer in beta testing, right? Trying things out on smaller scales first before we invest what could potentially be thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in this effort. We need to pilot this, right? And try it out, have a system for evaluation and constant kind of step-by-step goals and benchmarking that's also timelined. And so I think Valencia County, and Madam Chair, chime in here too, I think Valencia County could be a wonderful test kitchen for piloting some of those programs because they've seen it all at this point in this past election cycle. So voter registration has got to be key. And I'm specifically interested in registering new voters, young voters, and folks from historically underrepresented communities. And we've seen how that worked in Georgia. We've seen how that worked in Arizona on tribal lands. We have to do that work here in New Mexico. And, you know, we're on the radar. You know, people are paying attention to New Mexico because of our wonderful governor, because of Deb Haaland, because of our federal delegation. So I think that the political will is there to get that work done. Real quick, recruiting and training candidates. Same thing. I mean, that's when we're working, one thing I'd really be passionate about, and Madam Chair, I got to commend you for setting up a fellowship program, right, within the party, under the umbrella of the party. Wisconsin's state party is also doing this to great effect. They're basically creating what would be in the business world an incubator, right, under the umbrella of the party, so that folks who want to be engaged, who want to step up and run for office, who want to work in the political arena, have mentors, have folks that they can intern with, that they can learn from. They can take on more and more important roles within the party itself, or working on campaigns without being kind of tossed into the deep end of the swimming pool, right? And for those of you who've been working in politics for a long time, you know what that looks like sometimes, right? You've got young people with a fire in the belly and they want to get involved, and then we kind of throw them in the deep end. And sometimes they swim really, really well, but oftentimes they have a moment of going under, and we need folks who are able to pull them back up. And I know Auditor Colon is on here, and he's experienced that as a mentor over the years, I know. And so one of the things that we can do for recruiting, training candidates, and also folks who want to work in politics behind the scenes, is provide that kind of resource and pipeline within our own party, so that we can be more inclusive and more representative of our incredibly diverse New Mexico, but also give people the support they need to work effectively and be successful. So that's my background as a public school teacher talking there, Mitch. Economic populist agenda that does not compromise on reasonably cultural liberal policies. Folks, rhetoric matters. The words we choose matter. I know many of you on this call have read George Lakoff. Right? We've got to think about that when we're working in rural. We've got uncontested rhetorical spaces that we can move into, because really our democratic policies are smart and sound and are good policy. How we advertise that, or how we package that, if it means we have to change our languaging so that it gets through people's filters, right? That's absolutely what we have to do. So short answer, Mitch, to a very long conversation. I hope that kind of hits all the boxes here. Let's see, Leah, how we doing? We've got a couple more hands up, I see. I think Karen was waiting for a while, right?
Yes, we'll have Karen.
Hi, Karen.
I'm a precinct chair in Rio Rancho, and I like everything you're saying, and I look forward to voting for people on the state committee who will vote for you. My question has to do with primaries, and in Sandoval County, we're very interested in putting together information for people who are running for office. And as long as we are fair, I think we should be able to supply that material to anyone who has filed for office, regardless of whether they are have opposition in the Democratic Party or not. I know that as a county party, we cannot endorse anyone until the primary is over, but I think we need to be open to helping candidates before the primaries are over. And I'd like to know how you feel about that.
Sure, I hear what you're saying, Karen, because getting the information in front of our people is what is at the heart of your question, I think, and how to do that ethically and transparently for everyone. So I think this is where the chair would have to work directly with the SCC to come up with policy and procedure that will meet those expectations, so that yes, we are supporting Democrats. At the same time, we're making sure that we maintain neutrality through a primary season. Am I hitting the mark here, Karen? Am I understanding you right?
Well, I think so. I'm not sure it's that complicated at a higher level. I'm just saying, if we put together, for instance, a list of people who are fundraisers, a list of people who do data work, a list of people who have volunteers, we ought to be able to give that to whomever is the Democratic candidate. And right now, we're not supposed to.
Okay, understood. And this is something that I think as we go forward, if we have, say, 250 volunteers signed up with the Democratic Party, right? And these are folks who want to make phone calls, for example, then how do we make that accessible to candidates even in a primary season? And I think,
Yeah.
Karen, your concern is around fairness and that we maintain our ethical stance as a party organization, but at the same time, that to make sure that we are supporting Democrats who are stepping up to run. So it could be something as simple as a county by county approach, right? That we say, okay, we have 100 volunteers signed up to make phone calls. If you are a candidate, here are 25 names for you, 25 names for you, 25 names for you, and 25 names for you. And what you do with those then becomes, the candidate's responsibility. But I think, again, that's going to have to be at the county level almost. And when the state has folks running for state offices, I think the same kind of transparency and ethical behavior would apply on that front as well.
I understand that it's something we have to be very careful about, but I've noticed the DCCC has certainly deviated from that, as have some elected officials on the state level. And I think that I think we're moving away from it, and I think it makes some sense.
Okay, so we have two more questions, time for two more questions. So we have Dennis and Commissioner Bruck. So Dennis, you want to go ahead first?
Well, thank you. I'm going to kind of shift a little bit away from the rural versus urban issue and ask you, Jessica, I've been on State Central for a few years now, and I've witnessed some moments between progressive Democrats and Democrats of other persuasions. I think we're witnessing a serious disintegration of the Republican Party, and we cannot afford to follow in those footsteps. I'd like to hear your thoughts about, and I'll just qualify this by saying that I think that President Biden, including Bernie Sanders in top leadership roles and input, is an excellent move. But I'd like to hear your thoughts about kind of mending the gap between moderates, conservatives, and progressives within what is a very big party that we have.
Excellent question, Dennis. And to me, it means, is our big tent actually that big, right? When Democrats unite, Democrats win. It's pretty simple when you look at it from that. But how do you get to that place of creating unity? I had a gentleman in our own party years ago who came at me publicly at an event and said, well, you're a middle school teacher. What makes you think you're qualified to serve in the legislature? And I said, well, sir, I've spent a career convincing surly adolescents to work together for the greater good and in their own best interest. I don't see how the legislature is that different. And of course, everyone around us just laughed because I'm like, I was an 8th grade school teacher. Bring it. My friend, you've got nothing on my 8th grade boys. So I think, and I make a joke out of it, but I also think that we've reached this phase within our own party. And this is after talking to every shade of Democratic person that you can think of right now, whether, they're turquoise blue or navy blue or royal blue, right? Every color of blue Democrat here. And I think that there is this desire to keep our eyes on the big picture. Don't miss the forest for the trees. People want to be heard. They want to be included in meaningful ways. And I think folks are kind of realizing that the pragmatic thing for Democrats to do especially in light of GOP implosion. I mean, friends, any of you who are students of history, we may actually be witnessing the disintegration of a major party, right? Because if you look at how this evolves historically, the writing is on the wall that we may be seeing history repeat itself in the disintegration of one of our major parties. We want to make sure that doesn't happen to our Democratic Party either. And the way forward through that, I think, is with an absolute pragmatic eye on what are our top priorities and goals. For me personally, I would take any shade of blue Democrat over a Republican at this point. And even talking to, folks who self-identify as like extremely progressives, I think we've all hit that realization that whatever the price, if we can keep the Republicans out of power right now, because they've shown us who they are and the party itself is falling apart. So here's our opportunity as Democrats to find pathways for uniting, for common cause, making sure that we're adhering to our values and our policy and our beautiful platform, tweaking it as we go. And if we have to arm wrestle amongst ourselves, great, but that has to be done in respectful fashions that make sure people are feeling included and heard. It doesn't mean everyone's going to get their way all the time, right? But I think that the shift in consciousness now, especially after some tough losses, Valencia County is top of my mind, CD2, Sochi's loss, I think, really hit people hard because it was such a hard fought victory in 2018. So I'm hoping that we can continue to have those tough conversations sometimes, but absolutely redirect all that energy into our longer term goals and objectives. So I believe in our Democrats, and I believe that folks within our own party want to accomplish great things together. And that means maybe sometimes you have to put it on a shelf for a little while, agree to disagree, but keep moving forward to our common goals. So I'm off my soapbox on that one, Leah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll take one more question from Commissioner Bruck.
Commissioner.
Hey, thank you, Jessica. I want to thank you for stepping into this leadership challenge. I think that you're going to be amazing, and I'm confident that you will be the head of our party in the very near future. I can't thank Marg enough for everything she's done, and I think that you can build on that. Very quickly, I want to thank you for many of the things that you brought to mind, but I want to focus on just a couple. One is those local elections that were brought up. We have got to take the playbook from the Tea Party, to be exact, and go back to our school boards and our local elections and work hard to put the right folks in those roles. And I think that, with your support and strong county leadership, we can do that. One of the questions I had for you was the recruiting of GOP voters who are walking away from the party today. Do you have any strategy on that, or have you looked at that data at all?
The data is striking. I know there was an article recently in the New York Times, I think even in the past 2 days, that talked about hundreds of thousands of folks leaving the GOP, maybe not necessarily becoming Democrats, but at least becoming DTSs, right? So the party has turned them off to the point that they no longer want to be affiliated with the party. And Commissioner, you're speaking to a huge opportunity for the Democratic Party. And I think that when we talk about and continue to talk about these core issues that matter so much to folks that are getting kind of lost on the wayside, some of our policy issues that really kind of are bridge issues rather than wedge issues, I think that allows folks who maybe had been unwilling to entertain the concept of being members of the Democratic Party. Now suddenly we've created an invitation in. And now to answer your question more nuts and bolts, Commissioner, there are incredible organizations, and friends, this is the era of big tech, right? We've got nonprofit organizations that data mine for good or for ill, and I have very mixed feelings about this, but I feel like it's like the force, right? We can use the dark side of the force, or we can use the good side of the force. This is a real thing in our lives, big data. And when organizations are able to do this work, Commissioner, that they identify folks who, you know, whether it's their browsing history or their purchasing history, who seem to be skewing left. Those are the folks we need to be reaching first. And when we look at voter registration data, even in our own state, we're seeing that peel off, right? I've had, even personally, we had 3 really staunch Republican families who were supporting my race in District 22, because we took the time to get to know them, to talk about these real issues that are pertinent here. They have recently contacted me, all 3 of them. 2 of them have become Democrats. One of them has become DTS, which is, even in this little house race of mine, speaks of what the opportunity is. So the next step, okay, we've got these DTS folks, and I had to really work hard to have conversations with DTS voters in District 22 because there aren't enough Democrats. Like, we didn't have enough Democrats. I registered close to 1,000 people myself in my little district, but we're still outnumbered here almost 2 to 1. On the backside of the mountain, not Placitas, right? But on the east side of the Sandias. So building out our party to include the possibility for these folks to come over and visit, maybe stay a while, is going to be absolutely critical, especially when we're watching. I mean, Dennis said this, like, the GOP is imploding on itself right now. We need to capitalize on that. And, you know, part of my interest is also, I personally don't have the skill set to manage that big tech and find those folks. It's like needle in a haystack for me. But there are people, experts, who know how to do this. And I would love to beg them, if I need to, on my knees, come help us do this work in New Mexico. What is it going to cost? How much money do I need to raise? Because Madam Chair pointed out that that is a huge role for the chair, is to find the money we need to fund these initiatives. I will do that because it's absolutely critical that we bring them into the party, or at least make sure that even if they are DTS voters, they're voting blue, even though they still want to decline to state, right? Which is what DTS stands for.
All right, thank you, Jessica. So I'd like to give our amazing auditor a couple minutes to say a couple things.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it is great to be with you today. It's been a very important week, I think, in the political landscape for New Mexico for a few reasons. One, I think we continue to amplify the messages that are coming out about engaging folks in discussions about race. I'm very excited to say that the Crown Act, I'm wearing the Crown Act t-shirt today, which respects culturally significant hairstyles in our community and avoids discrimination based on those hairstyles. That passed 66-0 in our legislature. We're very pleased with that and look forward to that becoming the law of the land. But I will also tell you that yesterday was a very challenging day in that discussion. When you saw if you missed it, I would encourage you to look into the incredibly chilling questions that were posed by my home county senator, Senator Baca, to Secretary Designee Smith, when Senator Baca asked if he felt whether the Secretary Designee of Veterans Affairs could represent Hispanics because she was Black, which only represented less than 3% of New Mexico's population. Both of these items should be amplified. One should be celebrated and the other should not be tolerated. And I hope that as we come together as Democrats, we think about those opportunities to shine a light on both important ends of that discussion. I would just wanted to say too that I appreciated Dennis's question as a former state party chair, and having watched Chair Elliston do such a phenomenal job, and now having gotten to know Jessica over these last several years, I just want to say that I really hope that we can find a path and a dialogue and embrace a vernacular that actually really resonates with people who are hoping that the Democratic Party can be a big tent again. And while I appreciate, embrace, and almost always stand with progressive values as they're stated, I know that there is truly a thing called disaffected Democrats, and they are not engaging. And if we look at some of our traditional strongholds, they are no longer strongholds. And it's not because folks are necessarily re-registering or leaving the Democratic Party by registration. They're just not engaging. And so we have to find a way to speak to those folks. And I'll close with saying that I can't find a better profile than someone who's run in a difficult district twice and who has spoken to conservative Democrats at most of the doors of Democrats that she walks into in the homes that were in her district. And she found a way to engage those folks in high quality conversations. And so I want to applaud the advances that have been made in terms of the political spectrum within our own party, but let us not forget that we still have a spectrum that we should be embracing. And folks who are, whether they're conservative, moderate, or progressive, or maybe the liberal mark that sits between moderate and progressive Democrats, they should always and all feel welcome. And I hope that we can all work to do that. And I will say that here in Sandoval County, I've always felt welcome, and I've always felt like you've provided a welcoming space for everybody who joins you, whether it was when we were meeting in person a year ago or whether it's on Zoom. I always do feel welcomed here and feel like you welcome everybody who shows up. But I was proud to endorse Jessica very early on in this race as a statewide elected official. And many followed and led the way to say that Jessica is the right person for this job to try and fill the big shoes that are being left by Marg Elliston. So thank you all. Thanks for the 2 minutes. Leah, you're always gracious in giving me that opportunity. Commissioner, your words should not be taken lightly, and your question was on point as well. So thank you for that. And Jessica, thanks for your very adept answers to the questions that were presented today. I have a 12:30, so I'll be checking out, but I try to never miss. Thanks for all you do in Sandoval County. Appreciate you.
Hi. All right. So yeah, thank you, Jessica, so much. So now I would like to we would like to hear from Senator Brenda McKenna. After that, please stick around for a presentation from Alex about the ward meetings and the CCC meetings coming up. I unfortunately have to leave. I have a patient at 1 o'clock, so I gotta go now. So I will have Alex take over from here on. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Bye, Leah. Senator McKenna, you're up.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, my friends. So I am not going to spend too much more time